Mom begged me to come home because she's illI'd when I flew halfway the country, she said. You're babysitting your nephews, we are going on a family vacation. Please do not forget to visit our store, link in the description box. We'll let go. Was buried in spreadsheets when my phone buzzed. Mom's name flashed across the screen, and I felt that little knot in my stomach I always get when family calls out of the blue. They never call, they text, and only when they need cash. Hello, I answered, trying to keep the suspicion out of my voice. Maribel. My mother's voice was weak, barely above a whisper. I'm not feeling well at all, honey. I've been so dizzy and my chest hurts. Your father's working all the time, and I'm here alone. She paused, and I heard a shaky breath. I need you, Maribel. I need your help. My brain immediately jumped into problem-solving mode. What about Celeste? Can't she check on you? Celeste was my older sister, always Mom and Dad's golden child. Mom sighed heavily, the sound crackling through the phone. Celeste is so busy with those 3 kids. She can't possibly take care of me right now. I bit my lip. Course Celeste was too busy. Celeste was always too busy for anything that didn't directly benefit her. Please, Maribel. Mom's voice cracked. Could you come stay with me? Just for 2 weeks until I'm stronger. I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. I glanced at my computer screen. 3 major projects due, client meetings scheduled, and my boss was counting on me. My vacation wasn't supposed to start for another month. But how could I say no to my sick mother? I'll fly out tomorrow, I said, already mentally calculating what I'd need to do to make this work. Thank you, sweetheart, Mom said, suddenly sounding a little stronger. You've always been so dependable. Dependable Maribel, the family doormat. After hanging up, I immediately went to my boss's office and knocked on the door. Got a minute, Tomas? It's my mom. She's sick, and my dad's working, so there's no one to take care of her. I need to fly home tomorrow for a couple of weeks. Tomas frowned. What about your projects? The Devlin account. I know. Sorry. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't an emergency. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. Family comes first. We'll manage. Take the 2 weeks and we'll see you when you get back. Back at my desk, I booked a flight to my hometown for the next morning. I hadn't been back in 4 years. 4 whole years without a Christmas invitation, birthday call, or holiday gathering. Just occasional texts asking for money. That night I packed a suitcase and set my alarm. I lived alone in my apartment on the West Coast, about as far from my family as I could get while staying in the continental US. It wasn't an accident. The flight was uneventful, just like the taxi ride from the airport to my parents' house. The neighborhood looked the same. Tidy lawns, American flags, basketball hoops in driveways. My parents' house was a small ranch-style home with faded green siding that needed a fresh coat of paint. I knocked, my heart racing with worry. The door swung open and there stood my mother, looking perfectly fine. Her hair was freshly colored, her makeup done, and she was wearing earrings that matched her blouse. Mom! I stood frozen on the doorstep. Are you okay? She grabbed my arm and pulled me inside. Maribel, you made it. But your health. You said you were sick. Mom laughed and waved her hand dismissively. Oh, that was just a little fib to get you to come home. Surprise. I stood in the entryway, my suitcase still in my hand, as my brain tried to process what was happening. From the living room I heard voices and laughter. Look who's here, everyone. Mom called out. I followed her into the living room where my father sat in his recliner, newspaper in hand. On the couch was my sister Celeste, her husband Owen, and their 3 kids, Cara, Lucas, and baby Iris, whom I barely recognized. Maribel, Celeste said with a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. You actually came. Dad glanced up from his paper. Hey, kiddo. What's going on? I asked, looking from face to face. Mom said she was sick. We're going on vacation, Mom announced cheerfully. For 10 days to Florida. We need someone to watch the kids while we're gone. The realization hit me like a bucket of ice water. You lied about being sick so I would fly across the country to be a babysitter? Don't be so dramatic, Celeste said. It's not like your job is that important. No one will even notice you're gone. I felt my face flush with anger. I had to take emergency leave. I have projects due. This is what family does, Mom said firmly. We help each other. Celeste and Owen haven't had a vacation in years. Your father and I haven't been to Florida since our honeymoon. It's important. I looked around at their faces, expectant, entitled, not a shred of guilt among them. These people, my family, had manipulated me, lied to me, and now expected me to just fall in line. I could have exploded right then, could have screamed and shouted and told them exactly what I thought of their little scheme. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the lifetime of playing second fiddle, being the reliable one who helped out and never complained. Or maybe it was the sudden, crystal-clear idea of how to handle this situation. I took a deep breath and forced a smile. You know what? You're right. Family helps family. When are you leaving? The tension in the room immediately dissolved. Mom clapped her hands together. See? I told you she'd understand. We leave in 2 days, sweetie. Oh, this is going to be wonderful. As they launched into excited chatter about their trip, I thought about all the times I'd been the family afterthought. How I'd helped Mom clean while Celeste went out with friends. How I'd started working at 16 while my parents paid for Celeste's college. How I'd gotten a full scholarship and moved states away. And my parents barely noticed. How they only called when they needed money. Money they never paid back. Family helps family. And I was about to help them learn a valuable lesson. That night, we all sat around the dining table for dinner. Mom had made her lasagna, the one thing she could cook that wasn't half bad. Everyone was buzzing about their upcoming vacation. We got an amazing deal on the hotel, Dad said, scooping another helping onto his plate. Right on the beach in Clearwater. That's great, I said, forcing a smile while my mind raced with possibilities for my revenge. Owen was going on about the golf courses he planned to play. I barely knew the guy. He'd married Celeste 6 years ago, and I'd only seen him maybe 3 times. He seemed nice enough, but he was fully on board with using me as free childcare. Maribel, we wrote down all the kids' schedules, Mom said, passing me a color-coded printout. Iris still wakes up at night sometimes, but Lucas and Kara sleep through. Lucas has a thing about his food not touching, and Kara needs her special blanket for nap time. I nodded and took the paper, pretending to study it carefully. Got it. Anything else I should know? Lucas is allergic to strawberries, Celeste said. And Kara has soccer practice on Tuesday and Thursday. You'll need to drive her. No problem, I said, even though I didn't have a car here. They just assumed I'd figure it out like always. After dinner, Celeste, Owen, and the kids went upstairs to the guest room they were staying in. Dad turned on a baseball game and Mom started clearing dishes. I took the opportunity to slip away to my old bedroom. It was basically a storage room now with boxes stacked against the walls and a twin bed crammed in the corner. I sat on the bed, closed the door and pulled out my phone. I dialed Tomas, my boss. My hands were shaking a little. Maribel, everything okay with your mom? He answered. Not exactly, I said, and then told him the whole story. How my mother had faked being sick just to trick me into babysitting. Tomas was quiet for a moment. Wow. That's pretty manipulative. Yeah. I felt tears stinging my eyes. I'm sorry I left work for this. I should have known something was up. Hey, don't apologize. You were trying to do the right thing. Let's pause. So, what are you going to do? I don't know. Part of me wants to just book a flight home right now. You could do that, he said. Or you could take a real vacation. You've got the time off already. Might as well use it for yourself. I blinked, the idea taking root immediately. You think? Absolutely. Look, we've already reassigned your projects. Take the time, Maribel. You deserve it after this stunt they pulled. After hanging up, I immediately opened my laptop and started searching for vacation spots. If my family was going to Florida, I definitely wanted to go somewhere else. Somewhere better. Mexico caught my eye. Cancun specifically. White sand beaches, clear blue water, and what do you know? A resort with a room available starting the day after tomorrow, the exact same day my family was scheduled to leave. I booked it without hesitation. Then I found flights. An early morning one that would get me out of town before my family's afternoon departure. I'd be sipping a margarita on the beach before they even boarded their plane. The next morning I played along with the family preparations. Mom and Celeste were running around making lists. Dad was checking travel documents and the kids were excited and hyper. I used the opportunity to sneak out to a nearby shopping center. I bought a new swimsuit, sunscreen, a beach cover-up and sandals. Everything I'd need for my Mexican getaway. I hid my new purchases in my suitcase, buried under my regular clothes. That night, I double-checked my flights and hotel reservation, making sure everything was set. I felt a little guilty about the kids. They were innocent in all this. But then I remembered how Celeste had dismissed my career as just a job, and how my parents had lied to get me here. My family had always treated me like this, always putting me last. At 12, I was cooking dinner and helping clean while Celeste hung out with friends. At 16, I got a job at the local grocery store to pay for my own clothes and school supplies, while 19-year-old Celeste was at college with full parental support. I'd never gotten a dime from them for school. I'd worked my ass off for a scholarship. When I moved across the country after college, they barely noticed. They didn't visit, didn't call, except to ask for money. Money they never paid back. And now this, the ultimate manipulation. Faking illness to trick me into providing free childcare. No, I didn't feel guilty anymore. They'd made their choices. Now I was making mine. The next morning, departure day, I got up early. My flight was at 8 a.m., theirs was at 2 p.m. I needed to be out of the house by 6 a.m. to make it to the airport in time. I quietly packed my things and carefully opened my bedroom window. The bushes below would hide my suitcase until I could retrieve it. I gently dropped it out, wincing at the soft thud as it hit the ground. A few minutes later, Mom knocked on my door. "Maribel, you're up early." I opened the door already dressed. "Yeah, I thought I'd run to the convenience store and get some groceries and stuff for the kids before you all leave." "That's so thoughtful," Mom said, looking genuinely pleased. "We're leaving for the airport in about 4 hours. Will you be back by then?" "Oh, definitely," I lied smoothly. "I'll just be 15 minutes or so." I walked downstairs, said a quick goodbye to Dad, who was making coffee in the kitchen, and headed out the front door. I circled around to the side of the house, grabbed my suitcase from the bushes, and walked quickly down the street. Once I was safely out of sight of the house, I called a taxi. The taxi pulled up and I got in without looking back. "Airport, please," I said and turned off my phone. The airport was crowded, but I didn't care. For once in my life I felt completely free. I checked in for my flight, went through security, and found my gate without looking at my phone once. I knew it would be blowing up with calls and texts soon enough. I bought a coffee and a magazine and sat near the boarding area. For the first time since Mom's phone call, I felt myself relaxing. No one was asking me for money. No one was telling me what to do. No one was making me feel like I didn't matter. When they called my boarding group, I got on the plane with a smile on my face. I settled into my window seat, fastened my seat belt, and only then did I check the time. My family would be finishing breakfast about now, getting ready for their own trip, completely unaware that their childcare plan was currently taxiing down a runway. The flight to Cancun was smooth. I watched a movie, dozed a little, and tried not to think about the explosion that was happening back at my parents' house. By the time we landed in Mexico, it was just afternoon. I turned my phone back on as I waited for my luggage, and immediately it started buzzing like an angry beehive. 27 missed calls. 42 text messages. I scrolled through them quickly. "Where are you? Call us right now. If you're not back in 10 minutes, we're going to miss our flight. Celeste." "Maribel, this isn't funny. You selfish brat." "Celeste." The messages got progressively angrier. I put my phone away without responding. My luggage arrived, and I headed outside to catch a taxi to my resort. Cancun was beautiful. Hot, but with a breeze that made it perfect. My taxi driver was friendly, pointing out sights along the way. The resort was even better than the pictures. A sprawling white building with multiple pools, palm trees, and the ocean right there. I checked in, went to my room, and took a long shower. It was only after I changed into my new swimsuit and cover-up that I decided to deal with my family. I dialed Mom's number. She picked up on the first ring. "Maribel, where the hell are you?" She was practically screaming. "I'm in Mexico," I said calmly. "At a resort in Cancun." There was silence then. "What are you talking about? Get back here right now. We missed our flight because of you." "That's too bad," I said. "But I'm not coming back to babysit." You did this on purpose." Mom sputtered. "You planned this." "Yeah, I did. Kind of like how you planned to trick me into flying home by pretending to be sick. That was different. We needed your help. And you thought lying was the best way to get it. You didn't even ask if I could watch the kids. You manipulated me. Your sister. My sister could have hired a babysitter or asked me honestly if I could help. Instead, you lied about being sick. You made me worry that something was seriously wrong with you." Mom was quiet for a moment then. "You've ruined everything. Our vacation is cancelled. We can't get refunds this late." "I'm sorry about that," I said, and I kind of meant it. "But maybe this will teach you to treat me with a little more respect." "Respect?" Mom's voice rose again. "After what you've done." Celeste was right. "You are selfish." I laughed. "That's rich coming from the people who only call when they need money. Money you never pay back, by the way." "How dare you?" "No. How dare you? All of you. I'm done being the family doormat. I'm going to enjoy my vacation now. Goodbye, Mom." I hung up before she could respond. Almost immediately, my phone started ringing again. Celeste this time. I declined the call and turned off my phone. Then I went down to the bar by the pool, ordered a margarita, and took a long, satisfying sip as I looked out at the ocean. For the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. The next few days were amazing. I swam, I read books on the beach, I went on a snorkeling excursion, and I ate incredible food. I turned my phone on once a day to check work emails, none, and to post photos to my social media. Beautiful beach shots, selfies with colorful drinks, pictures of the incredible sunsets. Celeste commented on every single one. "Hope you're happy with yourself." Mom hasn't stopped crying. The kids keep asking where Aunt Maribel is. I ignored them all and kept posting. On my 4th day in Mexico, I met a guy named Everett at the resort bar. He was there on a business trip that had ended early, so he'd extended his stay. We hit it off right away, and he didn't seem to mind when I told him about my family drama. We spent the rest of my trip hanging out together. It was nice to have company, especially company that valued me just for being me, not for what I could do for them. By the time my week in Mexico was over, I felt refreshed and stronger than I'd been in years. I said goodbye to Everett. We exchanged numbers, but I wasn't sure if anything would come of it, and boarded my flight home with no regrets. I had 3 more days of my vacation left. When I got back to my apartment, I used them to clean my place, catch up on laundry, and prepare mentally for returning to work. Tomas had emailed to check in, and I assured him I'd be back as planned. My phone had finally stopped blowing up with calls and texts from my family. The silence was actually more unnerving than the anger had been. Then on the day before I was due back at work, my phone rang. It was my Aunt Lorraine, Mom's sister. "Maribel, it's your Aunt Lorraine." "Hi, Aunt Lorraine," I said cautiously. We weren't close, but she'd always been kind to me. "I heard what happened with your parents and Celeste. They're telling everyone you ruined their vacation." I sighed. "Did they mention that they lied about Mom being sick to trick me into babysitting?" "No," Lorraine said slowly. "They left that part out. I told Aunt Lorraine everything. The fake illness, the babysitting scheme, all of it." When I finished, there was silence on the line. "Well, I'll be damned," she finally said. "Your mother always did have a flair for the dramatic, but this is something else." "So, you believe me?" Yes. Of course I do. I love my sister, but she's always played favorites with you girls. I saw it when you were kids. It wasn't right then, and it's not right now. Her words hit me hard. I'd spent so many years thinking it was just me, that I was imagining things or being too sensitive. Thank you, I whispered. Maribel, what you did was pretty bold, Aunt Lorraine continued. But I can't say I blame you. Sometimes people need a wake-up call. We talked a bit longer and I hung up feeling better. At least one family member was on my side. The next day I went back to work. Tomas greeted me with a smile. Welcome back. How was Mexico? Amazing, I said and meant it. Thank you for suggesting it. And the family drama? Shrugged. Still dramatic. But I'm done letting it control me. The next few weeks passed quietly. No calls from Mom, Dad, or Celeste. I threw myself into my work, caught up on my projects, and even started dating Everett long distance after he called to say he couldn't stop thinking about me. Then, on a Tuesday evening, almost a month after my Mexico trip, my phone rang. Mom's number. I took a deep breath and answered. Hello, Maribel. Mom's voice was tight. How are you? Yes. I'm fine. How are you? We've been better, she said stiffly. Your father and I have been talking about what happened. Waited. What you did was very hurtful, she continued. We lost a lot of money on those tickets and reservations. No apology for lying about being sick. No acknowledgement of how they tried to use me. That's unfortunate, I said. Maybe next time you should hire a babysitter instead of lying to get me there. Mom sighed heavily. We didn't lie. We just stretched the truth a bit. Families help each other, Maribel. That's what they do. Is that what we do? Because from where I'm standing, it seems like I help you and you take advantage. That's not fair. Isn't it? When's the last time you called just to see how I'm doing? Not to ask for money, not to ask for a favor, just to talk to your daughter. Silence. That's what I thought, I said. Look, Mom. I'm not saying what I did wasn't petty. It was. But I'm done being the family ATM and free babysitting service. So, what are you saying? Mom asked, her voice small. I'm saying if you want a relationship with me, it needs to be a two-way street. I need to feel valued, not just useful. More silence. Then finally. I'll think about what you've said. You do that, I replied. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up, not knowing if that was the start of healing or the final nail in the coffin of our relationship. Either way, I didn't regret standing up for myself. That weekend I got a text from Celeste. The kids miss you. No apology, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Just using her children as emotional leverage. Classic Celeste move. I didn't respond. Life went on. I got a promotion at work. Everett and I continued dating. He even flew out to visit me, and we had a great weekend showing him around my city. I made new friends through a hiking club I joined. 3 months after the Mexico incident, I got another call from Aunt Lorraine. I thought you'd want to know, she said. Your mother admitted to me that they were wrong to lie to you. And blinked. She actually said that. She didn't use those exact words, of course. Of course not, I said with a small smile. But she did say they should have been more straightforward about needing help with the kids. That's practically an admission of guilt from your mother. I laughed. I guess it is. Give them time, Maribel. They're stubborn, but they do love you. Do they? I asked quietly. In their way, Aunt Lorraine said. It's not perfect, but it's there. After we hung up, I sat thinking about family, the one we're born with and the one we choose. I'd spent so many years trying to earn my parents' and sisters' approval, their love. It had never worked. Maybe it never would. And maybe that was okay. I built a good life for myself. I had a career I loved, friends who valued me, and possibly a promising relationship with Everett. I didn't need to be the family doormat anymore to feel worthy of love. A week later I got a card in the mail. Inside was a check and a note in my mother's handwriting. For the money we borrowed. Sorry it took so long. Love, Mom. It wasn't a full apology. It wasn't a promise to do better. But it was something, an acknowledgement at least. I deposited the check and sent a brief thank you text. Baby steps. Did I want to reconcile with my family? I wasn't sure. Part of me did miss them despite everything, but another part of me was afraid of falling back into old patterns, of letting them use me again. For now, I was happy keeping my distance. Maybe someday we'd find a way to have a healthier relationship. Or maybe we wouldn't. Either way, I'd be okay. And I'd learned that revenge, while sweet, wasn't really what I'd been after. What I wanted was recognition, acknowledgement, to be seen as a person with my own life and needs, not just as a resource to be tapped when convenient. My phone buzzed with a text from Everett. Dinner tonight. I smiled and typed back, can't wait. Life wasn't perfect. Family was still complicated. But for the first time in a long time, I was living on my terms. No regrets. That night, as Everett and I sat across from each other at our favorite restaurant, he asked about my family. Have you talked to them lately? I shook my head. Not really. It's better this way for now. I've spent my whole life trying to be what they wanted. Now I'm figuring out what I want. Everett raised his glass. To figuring things out. I clinked my glass against his. To no regrets. And I meant it, every word.